friends, this is Emily from burlapkitchen.com, where I'm all about simplicity. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a super cute Santa using a board from my garage. So the first thing I did was I went ahead and pre-painted it so you didn't have to sit and watch me paint, and now I'm just going to go ahead and sand it. I want to make sure I get all my edges roughed up really well. This is just going to add to that distressed antique look that I love so much. So now that everything's sanded up, I'm going to take some antique wax, and I am just going to brush it right onto my project, all over my project. I like to work out of the lid. I just find it to be less of a mess that way. So I'm going to brush this all over my project. And I need to get some new paintbrushes. My paintbrushes are getting so old. So now that that's done, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to take a rag and I'm going to wipe it all off. That's just going to, again, give that distressed antique look to this Santa that we're about to make. And of course, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing to the sides so it looks the same when it's standing up. Now I'm just going to blow dry it. I want to make sure it's nice and dry before I move on. And I think it's always important too to blow dry your work surface. That way you don't get any paint or stain onto your fabrics or anything else you're working on. So I'm just going to take a little piece of, this is actually drop cloth. You can buy this at Lowe's and with the paint. I want to say it costs around $13, $14 for a big thing of it. It's a really cool thing to get and keep on hand and keep in your craft stash. There's so many cute things you can do with this. And it already has that antique-y look about it, so you don't really have to do anything to it. So I'm just going to go ahead and I cut that in sort of like a half circle shape, and that's going to be the face, and I'm going to go ahead and just hot glue that right onto the top of my Santa. I'm going to make sure I get the ends glued down good. Okay, now I found this little piece of scrap fabric. This is the same stuff I used last year, and this is all I had left of it, so I'm just going to make it work for this project. So I'm going to glue the hat to meet the face. I'm just going to put a little strip of hot glue there, and then I'm just going to flip it around. And I'm going to trim this up a little bit. And I'm going to do the same thing over here on the other side and give that a trim too. Ideally, I would have liked it to slightly overlap, but like I said, this is all I had, and so I'm just going to make it work. So I'm going to go ahead and hot glue that. I'm going to cut these little strings off. Okay, now I'm going to flip it back over, and I am going to use a little bit of just brown paper and stuff it into the hat to give the hat a little volume. You could use napkins, you could use a plastic bag, anything you have on hand that you can kind of crinkle up and stuff in there. So now I'm going to take a little bit of twine and I'm just going to tie it in a knot just to secure it for now. We're going to come back to the hat a little bit later, but for now we're just going to tie it to secure it. We'll fix it up a little bit later and make it look super cute. Okay, I'm just going to put a double knot here in the back and trim that up. Okay, now I'm taking a piece of this fuzzy material. It's a car cloth. I don't even know the name for it, but I found it at the Dollar Tree. They actually have ones that are bright white and ones that are off-white. Normally what I do is I coffee dye these, but I didn't have them coffee dyed on hand, so I'm just basically showing you guys how to do this. If you like the coffee dye look, go ahead and soak them in coffee for about 10 minutes and then wring them out good and then let them dry. I normally bake them in the oven on a very low temp, but don't ever walk away from it because you don't want it to burn. So I just glued that on, and that's just the little fuzzy part of his hat. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some Spanish moss for his beard. Some people say they don't like the Spanish moss. I actually happen to love the Spanish moss, but if you don't like the Spanish moss, you can get mop heads at Dollar Tree, and I think they would work really well for this project too. So when I do this, I like to do the sideburns first. I just find that it's easiest to start on his sideburns and work my way around. And then you will have to fill in Spanish moss here and there just to get it to look the way that you want to, and you're going to have to give it a trim and glue it down. I want to leave a little space here at the bottom, because I'm going to tuck this Santa's coat underneath his beard. So this is just another little strip of that drop cloth. I just cut it and then I ripped it. That gives those cute little frayed edges. And I didn't quite want to glue it down that far, so I'm going to trim that up a little bit. Ideally, I would have liked to trim that up and fray the edges, but it is what it is now. It'll have to do. Okay, so now I'm going to use 2 little button eyes. And another thing, for this project, I wish I would have found a little bit of a smaller button for his eye, but it's going to work just fine. So I'm using a wood bead for his nose. And I always like to lay the face in place before I glue it down so I know what it's going to look like. Okay, now I'm using some blush. I'm actually using CoverGirl blush just because that's what I had on. I bought that shade and I didn't like it. So I use it for my crafts. But I would not buy CoverGirl for crafts. I would go to Dollar Tree and find some cute blush for that. I just applied it with a Q-tip in a circular motion. Now I'm going to go ahead and we're going to put a belt on Santa. So I'm just going to wrap some twine around him a few times. And then I'm going to trim it. And then I'm going to add a sprig of pine and a candy cane and a cinnamon stick. So for the candy cane, I just got a white pipe cleaner and a red pipe cleaner and twisted them together and then just bent it into shape. Also, I normally like to coffee dye those, and like I said with this project, I didn't have anything coffee dyed, but I do normally like to coffee dye them. So I'm just going to glue the sprig of pine in place along with the cinnamon stick. And then I'm just going to tuck that candy cane in there. And now I'm just going to tie a real simple, cute little bow. And these porch leaners these little leaners are so cute. What I was going to say is you can make them as big or as small as you want because I think they would look adorable super big as a porch leaner. So I glued that in place. That looks pretty good. Now we're going to come up to the top and we're going to work on making his hat look cute. So I have a little tag and I just put a little Christmas stamp on it. And I'm just going to slip that right onto some twine and tie a little bow. Just like that. Now I'm going to trim these ends. Now I'm going to take a little jingle bell and I am just going to glue that right to the center of the bow. And now I'm going to trim up his hat. I like to do that last just so I can see what it looks like. And then finally, we're going to add some cute little buttons to his coat. I found these brown, they're real old brown buttons. I found them in my button stash, so they were perfect for this project. And that is it, guys. Thank you so much for joining me for this project. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. For more great ideas just like this one, please follow burlapkitchen.com. Thank you.